Lab safety is a very important part of chemistry. Failure to follow lab safety protocols will result in you being removed from the lab and possibly earning disciplinary action and a 0 for that lab assignment and future lab assignments. So let's get started. Some lab safety rules. Listen to and read directions carefully before you touch any lab equipment. Highlight and make notes on the lab procedures as you read for anything that's important. Wear safety goggles whenever you are working with heat, glassware, or chemicals. Goggles must be over your eyes at all times during lab. Lots of students like to put them on their forehead or leave them on the lab table. They aren't protecting your eyes there. They need to be over your eyes. And no, glasses do not count as goggles. I do have some goggles that fit nicely over glasses that you are expected to wear. Tell the teacher immediately if you have any spills or chemicals or if you break any glassware. Be sure to wash your hands after you have used any chemicals and if you notice you have unknown substances on your skin. Keep your hair pulled back and avoid touching your face, ears, eyes, nose, and mouth while in the lab. Do not wear hoodies, coats, or other loose-fitting clothing into lab. That does not mean your clothes have to be skin tight, but we do not want super oversized things. Know where to find the emergency equipment. This includes the safety shower, the eye wash station, the fire extinguisher, the first aid kit, and the gas shutoff valve, which I did show you in class. Do not take personal items into the lab. You will only need your lab sheet, pencil, and what materials your teacher provided you. I will tell you any additional materials you need to bring in. You do not need to bring your whole backpack over to the lab station. It is a safety hazard. If possible, please wear glasses instead of contacts to lab. If you get chemicals in your eye, your contacts can absorb them and make the injury much worse, making glasses the safer option. However, if you are wearing contacts and you have an accident, please notify me immediately so we can remove those contacts as quickly as possible. By not telling me you have contacts in, you are hurting yourself. Wear an apron during all labs involving chemicals or heat. Make sure your apron goes past your knees but does not drag on the floor. I do not know why, but some of you prefer to wear lab aprons that do not fit. I will have my very tallest students in the smallest lab aprons that go like mid-thigh. That is not protecting anyone. Similarly, I will have my very shortest students wearing the biggest aprons I have and they are dragging the floor. That is a tripping hazard and you may injure yourself. Please select an appropriately sized apron. They do come in different sizes. You need to clean up your lab station and all your lab equipment when the lab is over. As you are aware, there are baskets on the table that contain lab cleanup supplies. A good rule of thumb is that your lab station and supplies should look better than when you entered the lab. Never, never, ever play around in the lab. You will be disciplined severely and swiftly. People can get hurt and foolishness will not be tolerated, not even for a second. Now, some specific safety concerns with equipment we will be using. First up is glassware. You want to check each piece of glassware before you use it. If it is cracked, broken, chipped, or overly stained, a lot of our glassware is a little stained, let your teacher know before you use it. Do not throw glass into the trash can. Notify your teacher so it can be disposed of properly. Putting it in the trash can is a safety hazard to our custodians. Please let me know if any glass has been broken. And pour carefully when you are adding liquids to glassware to avoid splashing. If you are working with heat, always assume that the glassware is hot. Hot glass looks exactly the same as cold glass, so you are not going to be able to tell by looking. Do not put hot glassware into cool water. The temperature difference may cause the glassware to shatter. Let all glassware cool before you wash it. We will also be using chemicals a lot this semester, and some safety with chemicals you will want to be concerned with is to always protect your eyes with safety goggles, as I have mentioned before, when working with chemicals, heat, or glass. Once again, glasses do not count. You never mix chemicals unless I have instructed you to do so. Always follow the instructions. I do not care how cool you think it might be to mix two different things together. You only follow the safety instructions. Never taste or directly smell any chemical. You waft the fumes towards your nose using your hand, and do not inhale the fumes. If you are working with acids and need to add water to it, never pour the water into an acid. You will measure out your water and then add the acid to the water. You can remember AAA, always add acid. Always follow your teacher's instructions for chemical disposal. Some chemicals can go down the sink, but others can't. Follow the instructions your teacher gives you. I will tell you what to do with your chemicals. You just need to listen. And you're going to want to wash your hands before you leave lab, just so you do not take anything out of here with you. Now, we don't use a ton of electricity in here, but electrical safety is always important to keep in mind. We will use electric balances a lot, and you always want to unplug and wrap the electric balance cord at the completion of every lab. Do not touch electrical equipment or outlets with wet or damp hands. Always make sure your hands are dry. And we never put anything into the electrical outlets. You are not a toddler. I can trust you with electrical outlets. If I can't trust you with electrical outlets, you won't be participating in lab. Do not use equipment that has a damaged cord. If you notice that your electronic balance or other electronic device you're using has a frayed or damaged cord, please let me know immediately. Do not jerk an electrical cord. Grab the plug and remove it from the outlet. And be sure all electrical equipment is unplugged at the end of the lab period. Do not leave things plugged in unless I have specifically told you to do so. One of the last big things that we work a lot with is heat. So you want to give hot plates and burners time to cool off before touching them. You can test the heat by holding your hand near, but do not touch the surface. If you feel heat coming off of the surface, that means it is still probably too hot to touch. Be sure to protect your hands. Use tongs to manage heated glassware and other heated items. Do not touch any materials used in the lab until it is cooled completely. This will take approximately 10 minutes depending on the heat you started with. Be aware and don't reach across a flame, steam, or other heat as you may get burned. Anytime we are heating test tubes, you want to point them away from the other people at your lab station. And you want to move the test tube around rather than keeping it still over the flame. If you just keep it still over the flame, this can cause your test tube to melt. And we never heat wet glassware. Always make sure your glassware is dry before you heat it. We will do a lab involving Bunsen burner safety. However, you always want to make sure your gas is on before using the striker. You do not just sit around and use the striker for your enjoyment. It is only for lighting the burner. And never, ever, ever leave a burner or other heat source unattended. This is a fire safety hazard. Now, hopefully, we will not have any accidents this school year. However, if accidents do happen, you need to know what to do. If you burn yourself, you touch a piece of hot glass, you touch a piece of hot metal, you're going to want to rinse the injured area with cool water, so turn on your sink and run it under there. You want to tell me so I can assess the degree of the burn. If it is small, we may treat it in the classroom. If it is more severe, you may be sent to the school nurse. If the incident is lacerations, you've gotten some sort of cut. We're going to want to put on safety gloves and use sterile gauze to put pressure directly on the injury if bleeding. I will then assess if it looks like you're going to need stitches, and we will need to get you to the school nurse so she can call the appropriate people. If it's a minor cut, I have Band-Aids in my classroom and I can handle it. If you happen to faint in my classroom or see someone else faint, we are going to loosen any tight clothing, provide fresh air, and we're going to contact the school nurse immediately. Even if you wake back up before she gets there, I'm required to call the school nurse. If you get something in your eye or have any sort of eye injury, we're going to flush eyes in the eye wash station for 15 minutes. We're going to remove contacts if possible, and if there are particles in the eye, we need to prevent eye rubbing so that you do not scratch your eyeball. And last but certainly not least, if you are poisoned or have any sort of chemical injection, we first have to determine what you ingested. So you need to alert me immediately, and chances are we're going to have to call 911. Do not eat anything in the lab unless specifically told to do so. Chemical ingestion is a serious matter. Chemical spills and skin contact. If you get any chemicals on your skin, you're going to want to flush the injured area with lots of cool water. If it is an acid spill, we're going to put a baking soda solution on it. And if it is a basic spill, we will apply vinegar. Let me know immediately so I can determine the best course of action. So these are our general lab safety tips that you are expected to follow throughout the semester, or else there will be consequences.